Good morning and welcome to the Dan Beasley Show. Today's show is about contemporary and breaking news items as they come across the wire to our headquarters here in Hartsville, South Carolina. Time now is 9:13 a.m. on July the 30th, 2013. And this is Dan Beasley coming to you live. And I want to get straight into the news today because we have a lot of territory to cover. One is tonight, if you are a stargazer or if it interests you, an asteroid about the size of 5 football fields will zoom past the Earth, and you can watch the closest approach live from the comfort of your home. It's going to be broadcast live on the internet, and we'll give you that internet address, but this is coming from space.com. The near-Earth asteroid 2003 DZ15 will come within 2.2 million miles or 3.5 million kilometers of our planet. It's about 9 times farther out than the distance between Earth and the Moon. It will happen tonight on Eastern Daylight Time at 8:37 p.m. And there's no chance that it will strike the Earth on this pass, scientists say. That's refreshing to know what's on this pass. It kind of leaves the question open as to which pass it is going to hit us on. It's a 500-foot wide asteroid, and it'll be too faint for most sky watchers to observe from their backyards, but folks can get a good look on their computer screens. Despite its large size, it's still far enough from the Earth that it appears as a pinprick of light against the star field as seen by the naked eye, and as seen by the Virtual Telescope Project instrument. Our next news item is there's new challenges in the news for fixing the problems with the new Boeing 787 Dreamliners. As you well know, fires have been breaking out in various places on the Dreamliner. The Dreamliner has a new generation of aircraft that's made out of carbon composites, which makes the fuselage itself a fuel source. I don't know if you remember a few years ago or not when Ricky Nelson, the famous singer from the 1950s, 1960s, Ozzie and Harriet era, he was a famous singer and his airplane was made out of magnesium to save fuel. Magnesium is the coating that goes on these fireworks called sparklers, and they're used in a lot of pyrotechnic explosions and things of that nature for effect. And it is a very, very hot fire that's generated by them. And getting back to the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, it's an engineering marvel, but it's a mix of carbon fibers and epoxy. Epoxy is glue, and it's molded into a large barrel-shaped sections and then baked at 350 degrees in giant ovens. Well, you can imagine what an oven would compare to a kerosene oxygen enriched jet fuel fire, how they would stack up against each other. We've already seen the aircraft that crashed in San Francisco, and we saw what the fire did in its aftermath. But this story goes on to say, while the airlines love how this lightweight concoction saves fuel, which is one of those airplanes that can carry over 300 people, the recent fire at 787 at Heathrow Airport in London provides the first test of how difficult and costly it will be to repair serious damage. And it's happening at a pivotal moment for Boeing, which is eager to show that even significant damage to a carbon composite plane like a 787 can be repaired as quickly and efficiently and effectively as the old aluminum models. Every day a jet remains grounded costs the airlines tens of thousands of dollars, and you know who they will pass those costs on to eventually. They will show up in the form of increased airfare tickets. Moving to our next news item, we have unrest that is still taking place in Benghazi. Benghazi's back in the news. Assailants have attacked Islamic Party office in Tripoli on Monday, and a soldier was killed in fighting in Libya's eastern city of Benghazi, officials said, in an escalation of violence following the assassination of a political activist. And that's coming from Reuters. That is being sent out of Benghazi by a reliable news source. So we don't have to worry about what's going on there. It took place because a car bombing a car exploded on July the 29th. The only person that was in the vehicle when it exploded was the driver, and he suffered burns on his body and was brought to a local hospital for medical health. According to the witnesses, it's not known what caused the explosion. So we've got more going on in Iran. Iran is using a biblical term saying Armageddon, the war of all wars, the war to end of all wars, the war to end of the human systems on earth as we know it is at hand. Prepare for war. They're saying the Islamic Messiah, their Mahdi, is expected to return with Jesus to kill the infidels. So even there's a blending of Islamic beliefs and Christian beliefs there. The Christians are looking for their Messiah, Jesus, to return, while the Islamic world is looking for their Messianic Mahdi to return. Of course, their Mahdi is supposed to be superior to the Christian Jesus, according to their beliefs. Iran is again asserting that Armageddon is at hand, and the Islamic regime followers, indeed of Islam, must prepare for a monumental change in the world. Officials of the Islamic regime last month held their annual conference on the Mahdism doctrine to prepare for the coming of the last Islamic Messiah, the Shiites' 12th Imam, the Mahdi. And the Shiites, whose clerics rule Iran with an iron fist, believe that at the end of times, Mahdi, a 9th century prophet, will reappear with Jesus at his side and kill all the infidels and raise the flag of Islam in all the four corners of the world, establishing worldwide Islamic governance. So anyway, that's what the Shiites believe, and that's what they're saying now, coming out of Iran. Along the same storylines, in the United States, the U.S. churches have been warned of a jihadist threat. Man tells police that within 2 weeks, everybody will know his name. So going to church is going to become a threatening situation. This is coming out of Fort Collins, Colorado. And they say that they're warning local churches to report any suspicious behavior after a self-proclaimed Islamic jihadist threatened Mormons and Catholics would be destroyed in the next 2 weeks. According to the Coloradian, police released a memo describing an unnamed white man in his early 30s who was stopping for attempting to shoot a video while driving, wearing a t-shirt wrapped around his head and a bandana and sunglasses over his face. The man reportedly claimed that he was the Archangel Michael and told police everyone would know his name within the next 2 weeks, but did not elaborate or make threats specific enough to warrant arrest. Looks like to me for trying to shoot a video while driving would be some sort of an infraction of the law. However, this is Colorado, and we don't know what their statutes are. And he was using expletives painted on the side of his vehicle and on the trunk and hood of his car. And also he had a verse from Revelation 14:7 that read, "Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of judgment has come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of the waters." At this point, the police have said there's no evidence of immediate danger, and they told the Coloradorian newspaper he doesn't believe that the man has a criminal background nor is wanted for any criminals. That's why the police haven't released his name. Moving along, we have a story coming out of NASA about a gigantic hole in our sun, and that a dark spot covers nearly a quarter of our closest star, the star that gives light and heat and life and drives our weather patterns, has a gigantic hole in the solar atmosphere. A dark spot that covers nearly a quarter of the closest star is spewing out solar material and gas into space. The so-called coronal hole is what they call these things, is over the sun's north pole and came into view between July the 13th and the 18th and was observed by the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, or SOHO. NASA released a video of the sun's hole as seen by SOHO, showing a region as a vast dark spot surrounded by solar activities. Coronal holes are darker and cooler regions of the sun's atmosphere or corona containing little solar material. In these gaps, magnetic fields whip out the solar wind 3 times stronger than what they normally are, and rather than looping back to the sun's surface, they continue outward. And coronal holes can affect space weather as they send their solar particles streaming off the sun. It's going to be something that's going to be watched very closely in the next few days or next few weeks. However, they have seen coronal holes before, but never of this magnitude. And the sun is approaching solar maximum, which means that every 12 years the sun undergoes a polar shift, meaning the North Pole becomes the South Pole and the South Pole becomes the North Pole. And as that happens, you see coronal holes appear, and then after the solar maximum is complete, the holes disappear. With one this size, they don't know what to make of it, but they're just saying right now that there's nothing to be concerned about. Moving on to the next news article. The logical and coming end to the United States empire. And this is by Robert P. Abel from Counterpunch. There are numerous legal and ethical arguments that can be made and have been made in opposition of U.S. foreign policy of raw aggression. For example, the illegalities of the U.S. empire. Examine the Geneva Conventions, all 4 of which directly prescribe what they each call outrages to human dignity, in particular, humiliating and degrading treatment. I guess they're going back to the mention of how we treated the Iranian detainees that we picked up during the Iraqi detainees that we picked up during the Iraqi War, the first Gulf War, and maybe even the second, and what happened at Guantanamo Bay. The outages are named specifically, and this is coming from the Geneva Conventions, which is really executed and governed by The Hague in the Netherlands. The outrages are named specifically as torture, mutilation, cruel treatment, taking hostages, murder, biological experimentation, and passing sentences on to prisoners without benefit of a regularly constituted court. In other words, it was being done de facto by the military as a junta, rather than as a regular court proceeding. Additionally, the Hague Conventions of 1899 and 1907 underscore the Geneva Conventions and expand the traditional ethical concerns of rights and duties to neutral states by banning the use of poison gases or arms, destroying or seizing enemy private property, attacking towns and cities that are undefended, pillaging, collective punishment, servility of enemy citizens, which is slavery, working in slave camps, and bullets made to wreak havoc once inside the human body. In other words, the black rhino bullets, plastic composite bullets, they can break off in shards and bounce around inside your body and cause massive amounts of harm rather than just one spot where the bullet enters the body and maybe even exits the body. Prescriptions to limit the conduct of war, including the requirements to warn the town of impending attacks to protect cultural, religious, and health institutions, and to ensure public order and safety. And they're saying that the ethical problems of the empire, the U.S. empire, think about the completely unjustifiable attacks of civilians done by the U.S. in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and Syria, and most prominently in Pakistan and Yemen, especially done by drones, or consider the U.S. use of torture from Al-Ghraib at Guantanamo Bay, which is what the name of the prison was. As everyone knows by now, ethical and humanitarian appeals have been completely and categorically rejected by U.S. leaders, not beginning with the 9/11, but certainly rejected with greater vigor since then. So anyway, the U.S. is under scrutiny from the Geneva Conventionists and also from the Hague, labeling people as war criminals. There's also a news article today in the news. Activists stormed the office of the congressman who voted for NSA spying. As you well know, Congress voted just recently to continue the NSA spying program. They were going to defund the program. However, Nancy Pelosi led a campaign that she brought on board some additional senators and representatives that headed off the defunding effort and allowed this spying to continue. And this is coming from The Verge. 6 activists from the anti-surveillance group Restore the Fourth, talking about the Fourth Amendment, paid an unexpected visit to the Secretary of New York Congressman in protest of the vote which allowed the National Security Agency to continue collecting Americans' phone records without a warrant. The action is intended to call out Representative Gregory Meeks, a Democrat from New York, and more than 200 other members of Congress that voted down an amendment last week aimed at curtailing the NSA's collection of domestic calling records. The group said that they wouldn't leave until Meeks apologizes for his no vote and commits to fighting against surveillance programs which collect data on Americans without a warrant or suspicion of wrongdoings. So anyway, they're saying that he voted for Big Brother and against the constituents and rights of every American. And this organization, Restore the Fourth, is a large organization, and it was this congressman's largest election campaign donor over the last 3 years. I'm sorry, I will correct myself on that. AT&T was the largest donor, which charges taxpayers $325 for every wiretap it activates and play a role in his vote. And in the news today also, our good old banksters are back in business, and they're alive and they're well, even if the economy is going down the drain. One of the largest banks in the world, J.P. Morgan, is accused by the FERC of manipulating a power market to be fined $400 million. $400 million is nothing compared to what J.P. Morgan is worth. On paper, they're worth up in the trillions. But this is just coming in from Zero Hedge as flashing headlines for now that J.P. Morgan is accused by a U.S. regulator of manipulating the power market, which is the electrical market. Also accused of manipulating energy bidding strategies. and also accused J.P. Morgan of alleged violations in emails. And now we look forward to learning how many hundreds or even thousands of cents the settlement would be, which will also include full wrist-slapping pardon of Blythe Masters, of course, from Bloomberg. J.P. Morgan manipulated the power markets in California and the Midwest from September 2010 to June 2011. The bank has agreed to sanctions that include a $400 million settlement in a deal that may be announced as early as tomorrow, which is actually today. According to the person familiar with the case, asked not to be identified. Because the terms are not yet public, other claims may include forfeiting and foregoing excess profits. And that's probably where they'll be hurt worse than anything. J.P. Morgan has spread its tentacles out across the entire world, and they were in the news recently where there was like about 20 fire trucks that were called to try to put out a fire in their gold vault, which is down below the streets in New York City at their New York headquarters. And they also contributed $1 million to the Obama campaign when he first became elected. So they're one of his major benefactors. I just wanted to add that as an additional comment. In the news today also, a strange attack occurred with a girl contracting a brain-eating amoeba after swimming at an Arkansas water park. These amoebas are usually harmless, but in standing water they become so plentiful that they can enter into your body through your nose or your ears or your mouth, and then they'll travel to your brain, and then they will cause parasitic meningitis, which is a rare and deadly disease caused by the brain-eating amoeba, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in Arkansas, the Arkansas Department of Public Health. This is the first known case of parasitic meningitis in years, according to the Medical Daily. Obviously, they haven't read news recently. There was one up in one of the northern states where a person went swimming into a pool that was not irrigated, and it was stagnated water. So obviously they are not aware of that one, or they don't want to count that one. It is caused by the amoeba Naegleria floweri, and is typically found in fresh water or soil. It enters the human body through the nose, where it then moves to the brain, typically causing death. She was rushed to the hospital by her mother a day after going swimming at a local lake. Heat also plays a part in these amoebas multiplying rapidly in water, standing water that does not have any kind of a stream that's feeding the water, or it's being drained out and the water is constantly being replenished. So therefore, these things are becoming more prevalent as the heat increases. People are drawn to these places to go swimming, not thinking that these parasites are there. So anyway, that is the news from Arkansas. Coming back to the world of space. The world of space is now featuring a request from NASA for people to offer ideas to them concerning how to capture an asteroid and take it to moon orbit so it can be studied. And also, I guess, is to improve on technology to where they can get rid of Earth-threatening asteroids before they can impact the Earth and cause massive damage. So right now, that's what's going on at NASA. They're looking, for ideas on how to entrap an asteroid and tow it to the moon. Another article, and this is strange weather. and it's about Hawaii, a place that doesn't get very much strange weather. Tropical depression Flossie soaks Hawaii for one last day, and is talking about Flossie, that was once a tropical storm, is downgraded to a tropical depression as of 5 o'clock p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. While dry air and the upper levels of the atmosphere and northerly winds have created significant shear that weakened Flossie, there are still areas of locally heavy rain that will persist over parts of the island chain, including the windward and leeward locations through Tuesday. All of Hawaii remains under a flash flood watch, and rain could be heavy enough to cause flash flooding, rock slides, mudslides, and high terrain. Flossie will produce occasional peak gusts at 40 miles per hour, particularly over ridge tops, along with high surf of 8 to 15 feet tall along east-facing shores, and expect strong breaking waves and rip currents as well. And that concludes our news for today. I hope that you are more informed now and that you can go out and make more informed decisions as to what's going on in your world today. Now we have a little bit of time left to discuss some of these news articles. The coronal hole in the sun is a major concern, because if that hole did not appear where it did appear, it could have diminished the amount of sunlight coming to the earth and will cause the temperatures to drop dramatically, leading to possibly another ice age if it continued to remain on the surface of the sun. There's two schools of thought. We're entering an ice age, or we're globally warming up. I say that there's probably the truth is in the middle. It's probably a little of both. But we know that we have gone through an ice age before, and they've taken core samples of ice and all of that, and they found out that the sun did play a part in, and cosmic rays played a part in bringing these ice ages on. And we're just coming out of an ice age, and technically we may be re-entering the ice age. So anyway, we have that to worry about. But the God's word, the Bible, mentions that there will be signs in the heavens, and it mentions that there will be a darkening of the sun, and the moon will not give its light. And it mentions the fact that there will be things like mountains falling from the sky and will fall upon the waters of the earth and cause them to become bitter and kill a third of mankind. And there will be also solar flares scorching the earth. The earth will be scorched by the sun. All of these things have been predicted for thousands of years, and they are coming to fruition. We're seeing them in today's news headlines. Also, terrorism is on the increase. It says in the last days that terrorism will be throughout the land, and that's what we're seeing, is terrorism in our schools, terrorism in our churches, terrorism in our public places, terrorism in our streets, terrorism in the air, with the airplanes being blown up in midair or being commandeered. Also, other issues such as economic upheavals and chaos. J.P. Morgan doing what it's doing, thinking it's above the law, trying to take the law into its own hands. And also asteroids passing the earth, which are really mountains in the sky, so to speak, to go back to the Bible predictions. And also, looking at pestilences, such as these amoeba infections and things of that nature that you didn't used to hear of. But they've used the word rare in a lot of cases to describe these sorts of things. But if you get one, it's rare. If you get two, it's becoming more common. And if you get more than two, then you're starting to say it's a pandemic. And then if you get widespread, um, sampling of it, and it spreads in a wide area, it becomes an epidemic. So we're looking at that, as biblical prophecy as well as pestilences that are coming upon men, and people are losing their lives due to these things that are just very, very innocent things that we're doing. And brings us to the point of how well are you with your maker? I mean, do you think that you're going to live forever? They can do plastic surgery on you to make you look younger. You can do exercises and make you feel younger, but have your tissues been regenerated to the point to where you're actually a younger person? You may extend your life a few years, by being more active, but overall, every person is assigned so many days and heartbeats on this earth. Neil Armstrong was once asked why he didn't jog on the beach every week by his fellow astronauts, and he responded that God only gave him so many heartbeats and he did not want to waste them running on a beach. There are other things, the unrest in the Middle East, with Iran calling for Armageddon. Armageddon is biblical prophecy. It's been in the Bible for thousands of years. If you want to read about it, it's in the book of Revelation. It's at the end of the Bible. The very last book of the Bible is Revelation, where it talks about how all of the earth's armies are going to gather together in a place called Megiddo or Armageddon, and that there will be billions of people killed. Billions. They said the blood will flow up to the horses' bridles. There will be so many people killed. So that's going to be one horrific war. It's going to take 7 years to bury the dead. And also, we're having weird weather. I mean, tropical depressions hitting the Hawaiian Islands. Who ever heard of that in their lifetime? I mean, maybe they've gotten some thunderstorms occasionally, some light rain or something, but thunderstorms, tropical depressions, hurricanes. It could have been a hurricane. It was traveling across warm waters long enough. But anyway, you get the picture. Are you on the right side of the equation with your creator, or do you think that you're just going to automatically be allowed into heaven and everybody's going to get there, and irregardless of what they do? I have news for you. The same book that has all of these predictions and these prophecies in it states otherwise. It states that there's only one way to get to heaven when you die, and that is through God's Son, Jesus Christ, who came 2,000 years ago and gave his life on the cross at Calvary. After being unjustly accused of being a sinner, he suffered for your sins and my sins. And if we accept him as payment, as God accepts him as payment, then all of our sins are nullified and voided and erased against our account. Otherwise, one day we'll have to stand before God and give an account for everything that we've ever done. The only plea we have is the plea of the blood of Jesus. And Jesus even said that if a man tries to get into heaven any other way, he's a thief. And the Bible also says there's no thieves shall enter into the kingdom of heaven. So that solves that issue. What you need to do today is make the most important decision of your life and listen to the Holy Scriptures and go back and look it up for yourself. Don't just take this one person's word for it. Look it up for yourself and see. And you will see countless mentionings in the Bible about where people, repented and God stopped his punishment and pouring out his wrath upon those people. Right now, America is under wrath. We're seeing the wrath of God being poured out on it, and we call it weird weather. We call it sinkholes. We call it earthquakes, and we call it economic troubles and things of that nature. But what it really is God is taking his hand of protection off of America and is allowing these things to come upon us as possibly a warning, or maybe just to whip us back into shape, or maybe to annihilate us if we refuse to come back to him. He is a loving God, he's a forgiving God, he is a long-suffering God, but he's also a God of justice. And he's a God of mercy, but he's also a God of justice. And he cannot tolerate sin. And America has pushed the envelope about as far or further than they ever should have pushed it. They should never have pushed it at all. I can remember growing up in the 50s and 60s, and everything was relatively calm, and you didn't hear of these things. But now it's on a daily basis. I mean, whoever heard of a gigantic hole in the top of the sun? Whoever heard of these other countries trying to create Armageddon, trying to force the Mahdi to appear, their Mahdi to appear? That's what they're trying to do with jihad. Is they're trying to create enough disturbance and trouble so Mahdi will appear. That's their beliefs. So anyway, folks, this is the end of our program for today. I hope you have a good and godly day. This is Dan Beasley from Hartsville, wishing you a good day and hoping that you will tune in tomorrow for our next episode. Good day.